The opening scene presents Peter cradling a critically injured Aunt May, with MJ witnessing the scene in utter disbelief. Overwhelmed by rage, Peter screams, "Enough is enough!" as the mercenary sniper relentlessly shoots into Peter's residence. He dashes outdoors and hurls a jeep towards the assailant. While Mary Jane struggles to dial emergency services, Peter is convinced that help won't arrive in time to save her, prompting him to swiftly transport Aunt May to the nearest medical facility as Peter Parker himself. In the ensuing chaos, as medical personnel scramble to administer aid to Aunt May, Peter is seen overwhelmed by frustration, perching silently on the wall just outside her treatment room. A guard is seen delivering a veiled update to Kingpin through a secretive message indicating that an attack has been made on one of Peter's closest family members. The following morning, Peter finds Mary Jane in a secluded alley to inform her that Aunt May's health has somewhat stabilized, yet shows no signs of improvement, with Peter inwardly accusing himself for his aunt's critical situation. Peter instructs Mary Jane to use Aunt May's birth name for all hospital documentation and to ensure all necessary forms are signed, before he sets off to trace the shooter responsible for Aunt May's condition. Upon investigating the site where he had earlier intercepted the sniper, Peter is halted by a police officer, whom he quickly incapacitates with his web. Alerted by his spider sense to a significant clue, he discovers the sniper's rifle scope. Fueled by anger, Peter ventures into the night, locating and forcefully entering the criminal's hideout, determined to find the mastermind behind the attack on his family. In a tense confrontation, Peter resorts to breaking the hand of a man who feigns ignorance about the rifle scope, eventually compelling him to divulge the identity and location of the assailant. Shifting focus to Mary Jane, she receives the heartbreaking news from the doctor that Aunt May has fallen into a coma, with the grim prognosis that despite the life support machine's efforts, Aunt May's advanced age significantly hampers her recovery chances, leading to an inevitable death. Elsewhere, amidst a downpour, Peter ascends to a towering rooftop to retrieve an item he had previously abandoned, arguing it conveyed an undesirable message. Yet he preserved it for a moment when its message might once again be deemed necessary. Unraveling the webbed package, he unveils the fabric-made symbiote suit crafted by Black Cat. He vows that upon locating Aunt May's assailant, retribution would be his alone. We see Peter on a call with Mary Jane, who grimly updates him that Aunt May's condition is critical, as she remains in a coma sustained solely by life support systems. They are faced with the harsh reality that Aunt May's recovery is now entirely dependent on her body's willingness to heal. Donned in the black suit, Peter vows to track down Aunt May's assailant, swearing that the hospital will see a surge in admissions before the end of the day. Confronting a man for information, Peter is met with defiance, the man boldly stating Spider-Man won't act. In response, Peter ejects him through a window, saving him at the last moment with a web tethered to his foot. A more persuasive inquiry yields 3 names, but only one strikes a chord with Peter, Jake Martino. In a bid to locate Martino, Peter obstructs 2 officers to commandeer their vehicle for its onboard computer access. He arrives at an address, meeting an elderly man who recognizes Spidey from a televised battle alongside Captain America. The man confirms Jake's residency, noting his punctual cash rent payments and recent departure with luggage headed for the train station. As Spider-Man heads to the train station, the man adds that 2 others had been inquiring about Jake as well. At the train station, Peter, concentrating, spots Jake attempting to flee. Jake opens fire amidst the crowd, prompting Peter to intervene swiftly. He fractures Jake's arm to thwart the shooting. Reminding Jake of his attack on Aunt May, Peter forcefully slams him against a wall. Demanding the name of his employer, Jake, deep in fear, is on the verge of giving Peter that key information. Then suddenly, Jake is taken out by a sniper's bullet, eluding Peter despite a hastily applied spider tracer. Riding along with the ambulance, Peter confronts the grim thought that he was prepared to end Jake's life for harming his aunt. Following Jake to the hospital where he succumbs to his injuries, Peter learns from MJ the grim prognosis for Aunt May. Catching up to the individual marked by the spider tracer, Peter silences him with webbing and confiscates his phone. As the man attempts to disconnect, Peter identifies the voice on the other end as Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. In a terse exchange, Fisk inquires after Spider-Man's wishes, to which Peter chillingly responds that his wish is for Fisk to die. In the confines of his cell, upon hearing Peter's grim wish for his demise, Kingpin coolly rebuffs the threat, asserting his invincibility. He implies that others suffer or die in his stead, or due to his machinations. Peter confronts the sharpshooter responsible for targeting Jake Martino, and indirectly Aunt May, pressing him for information. The sniper reveals he acted under Kingpin's orders, as Jake possessed knowledge too dangerous for Kingpin's liking. Opting against lethal retribution, Peter decides to use the sniper as a warning, underscoring that the man was merely a pawn in Kingpin's game. In a strategic move within the prison, Wilson Fisk entices the guard named Charlie and his colleagues with a substantial bribe, aiming for an early release. He further requests the return of his personal attire. Peter, in a stark display of intimidation, suspends Jake's sniper in a rat-infested sewer. He leaves him at the mercy of its resident rats as they begin to make their way towards their next meal, but ultimately spares him with a stern warning. Peter Parker's family is sacrosanct. Should anyone dare target his loved ones again, Peter vows to hunt them down, adopting the role of the hunter against them. Peter, now out of costume, revisits the hospital only to find Aunt May's condition unchanged. Mary Jane shares their continued reliance on cash payments for Aunt May's secluded care and superior medical attention. Peter's offer to procure more funds is cut short by Mary Jane, who highlights the potential risks of drawing undue attention to their precarious situation. In a desperate bid to aid Aunt May, Peter and Mary Jane embark on a risky endeavor, transfusing Peter's blood into Aunt May, hoping for a swift positive response. Leaving Mary Jane's side, Peter heads for the prison housing Wilson Fisk. Transitioning back to Riker's prison, Fisk opens a box with his iconic white suit inside. Simultaneously, Fisk gets dressed, and Spider-Man starts making his way into the prison. After donning his immaculate attire and cane, he begins to proceed down the prison hallways confident in his release. Upon entering Riker's as Spider-Man, Peter is met with surprise from Fisk. Peter tells Fisk this is the end of the road for him. Fisk responds by saying he hadn't envisioned their final confrontation occurring within prison walls. Fisk mocks Peter, calling him a chump for his belief in altruism, and cruelly reminding him of his role in Aunt May's critical condition. Spider-Man remains silent, responding only with a flurry of blows. Fisk provokes him further, accusing Peter of betraying his own principles and hurting those he professes to love. Unfazed, Spider-Man continues pummeling Fisk without uttering a word. Removing his mask and the top portion of his suit, he declares that it's not Spider-Man who seeks Fisk's demise, but Peter Parker himself. He then lunges at Fisk, who seems prepared for Peter's onslaught. Fueled by wrath, Peter unleashes a relentless attack, driving Fisk to the brink of death while proclaiming Fisk's supposed dominance as nothing but an illusion. Fisk's counterattacks are futile against Peter's agile defense. We then see Fisk laying face down with blood streaming from his nose and mouth. Instead of executing his threat to kill Fisk, Peter double backslaps him, adding insult to injury. In a moment of brutal honesty, Peter hoists Fisk, threatening to suffocate him with webbing in such a manner that only a fatal surgical procedure could offer any hope of survival. We finally see fear in Fisk's eyes as he comes to the realization that Peter may indeed kill him. Peter counts down before launching Fisk against a wall. He asserts that defeating Fisk, especially in such a public and humiliating manner, surpasses any form of killing. Peter highlights the erosion of Fisk's reputation, now tarnished by defeat and shame, observed by inmates who will spread the tale. Peter sternly warns Fisk that Aunt May's death would seal his fate, promising Fisk will die. Meanwhile, he says to Fisk that Fisk will have to live with the memory of the moment, the humiliation of being completely and utterly dominated by a foe. Peter leaves Fisk to stew in the disgrace of his defeat, broadcasting a warning to all prisoners about the consequences of targeting his family. Peter then web-slings away while telling Fisk that he needs to start praying now for Aunt May to live. While leaving wounded and humiliated, Fisk sneers at the other prisoners while asking what they are looking at.